Oh, okay. So we're starting. Yeah. So I don't know why this thing is recording so dark. When I make it into a video or a picture or whatever, it's way lighter. I got I don't know, whatever. Anyways, okay. So I was gonna say that I was gonna make a real quick video, but I don't know how quick it's gonna be. Um, basically, excuse me, sorry, it's like 10:30 at night. I wanted to talk more about, the Earth Christians and, what exactly I mean by that, and and how it differs exactly from regular Christians, because yeah, I've just been thinking a lot about this whole concept, and it just comes up a lot now because I think what it ultimately comes down to is a matter of belief. And you might not think of yourself as an unbeliever, but it might turn out that when push comes to shove, that you actually are an unbeliever, and you really need to decide what you're going to believe. And it can get kind of, I won't say nitpicky, but like, it doesn't mean that you have to believe every flippin' thing that anyone says about, well, God told me this and God told me that. But your posture about it um, is very telling, because if you are someone, I was thinking about Thomas today. I think someone mentioned him in passing, the from the Bible. And some things say like don't be like Thomas, and then some things say being like Thomas is okay because Jesus didn't rebuke him, so it's fine. And you really need to look at the context of Thomas, because what he was saying at that moment was not that he didn't believe in anything supernatural or that he didn't believe that Jesus was God. It was just that he was hearing information, he was hearing news about something that happened. And he was saying, and because of the seriousness of the information, of the implications of what it would mean if it were true, he wasn't, it was too much for him to just go into belief about it and just be up and down jumping. He was just like, whoa, 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 whoa. Until we move on to, until I see his, the nails in his hands and all that stuff, which is a very, very poignant thing to say, because it's not like until I see him physically, until he's like at the door. It had nothing to do with his presence being there. It was about him seeing evidence of what he had gone through on the cross. Because, a ghost can come and appear. You know what I mean? Like, he was like, no, I saw him die in this certain way, and I need to see that, you know? And that is not the same thing, I don't think, as what a lot of y'all are doing, where you need to see proof. You're more of the unbelieving generation that asks for a sign. And you need a sign because you're not going to just up and change your life for no reason. You need a really, really good sign. And by the way, also, that's not actually going to change you, but you ask for it anyway because you think that if you can see it with your eyes, that it's going to make a difference. But the reality is, whether you see it with your eyes or not, it's of the spirit, and the things of the spirit are just hard to do when you're not born again. So, I don't know. I was just thinking about the way that people talk when you basically know that they are not believers, because you cannot be as earth focused as you are and also be a believer. So, um, it's one thing to not have heard all of the proofs and all of the things about Jesus as having walked the earth, and hearing, you know, the propaganda first about how Jesus is really based on three mythical people or whatever. And, there's no evidence of this and that. And the Bible's written by man, blah, blah, blah. Even this whole getting tripped up over the Bible being written by man is a bad sign. Um, it's weird, actually, because it's kind of saying two things simultaneously. Because the fact that it's a written account, written by men, which means you have this weird, um, you're putting this weird limitation on men that they can't hear from God, they can't be inspired by God. God can't just work through men to write down certain things, remember certain details, record certain details and leave other ones out. Put in the accurate amount of numbers of here and there and the genealogies. Like, you don't think God can orchestrate anything from men, or that men are so flawed and so, you know, they can't even be called upon to reliably like record information for God. And yet, um, you're so focused on what this group of people thinks about you and thinks about what you think about. It's like the weirdest thing ever. Um, when the proper mindset should be the exact opposite, where you know that God can work through anybody, even whether they want Him to work through them or not. Um, which I have made a video about that, about unbelievers doing the Lord's work, which happens all the time. Um, and they don't even really know that it's happening. It's not like they're done and they're like, he tricked me again. Like, they don't know that that's what they're doing, because they don't understand God. And so, it is quite easy for God to work through men, and it's kind of His preferred method, because we are special to God. And this is another thing. If you are a Christian, you should understand God's, man's place in God's hierarchy. So, um, you should know what men are capable of. Even something as simple as, why do bad things happen to like little children and all this stuff? Because I was thinking about this today, and I just think, um, even little things like that really betray how little you actually believe in what God is saying. Part of it is that you haven't heard, so you can't believe if you haven't heard. But, meaning you're not reading your Bible, you're not meditating on the Word, you're not taking it seriously. I don't know, maybe you're just reading it to see what in there is pertinent to what you're doing or whatever, and anything else is just not. You're not reading it to understand the God of the world and what He cares about. I guess, I don't know, but we put a lot of emphasis on the calamities happening to small children and people who, from an earthly perspective, are too young to have to deal with things. They're too young, they're too feeble. Um, And God does not see it that way. Um, and you should know about the not only just the way that God sees us, but the way things really are. The reality is a baby from birth has all the capacity in the world to uh, disrupt hell. And that is why, and here's the thing, like what I'm telling you now, like God believes it, the devil believes it. So, that might even be the rule of thumb. I have to do this a little bit longer to see, but if it's something that both God believes, there's proof that God believes it, and there's proof that the devil believes it. That is the proper perspective. If only if it's something that is only true in one camp or neither camps, then that is an earthly human idea. So, like another one is like people who are so troubled with the amount of conflict that the Bible brings, because it's supposed to be about love and goodness and this and that, but it's bringing so much conflict that I like. Does it get any more lazy as far as really thinking through something? I mean, can you not think of anything in the world, in just the material world, that is both good but also can bring a ton of conflict? Um, or something that, or something benign, something like money, that, I would argue is neutral until it's put in the hands of a certain person or whatever. Okay. Money brings a lot of things, and one of them is conflict. But that doesn't make money bad. That makes, if people win the lottery and then that person that won the lottery suddenly is killed in cold blood or whatever, that's, is it the lottery's fault? You could make a case for it, but ultimately, that is, the lottery is bringing out what's in people already. So the Bible causing conflict, causing, we'll even give you the wars and the crusades and all of that crap if it really means that much to you. But even that is showing that, it means something. It's of significance. It's bringing out the best and the worst in people. Nothing, you can't do that with just anything. And um, and if you do, it's not necessarily because that thing is bad. Um, I don't know. I just heard someone bring up that argument today, and I wrote it down because it just was so. I was like trying to find all of these kind of earth examples of people misunderstanding because they're so tethered to this place that when they look at things that are eternal, they go, well, oh, like it. They're not drawn to it. Because they're looking at it, they're like, well, this is going to cause my life to crumble, or this is going to make people uncomfortable, or this is going to divide. It's divisive. You know what I mean? It's just like, divisive where? On earth? You know what I'm saying? Like, and another thing I was kind of thinking about, like, there's some people, there's still some rapture dates out there, and a lot of people, another rapture date come and gone, and fallout from that, and people being this and that. And again, not for everybody. Not everybody wants to sit and try to calculate dates and use math or use calendars or whatever, or use the constellations. Not everybody is interested in that, but there's quite a few people who are. And obviously, we're still here. Nothing happened. And it's just so funny to see how people respond to that. And it reminds me of, like, if you go to a movie, like if you go to a movie and I don't know, I'm trying to think of a movie that would, I don't know. I was about to say National Treasure, but I've never seen that movie, so I don't know. But I imagine any type of not really a heist movie, but movie where they have to solve a problem or a puzzle. You know, what do you call it? What's that one with the Last Supper and the I don't know. It was like a whole thing. The Da Vinci Code. You know, they follow clues and they follow a couple of dead ends. And you know, if you're sitting in that movie and they put together a puzzle and then they thought the puzzle was going to work and then they get to the place and it ends up not working, you don't sit in the movie and go, oh, these freaking losers. How embarrassing. They got it wrong. And the reason why you don't do that is because you're watching a movie and you know there's going to be that whoever wrote the movie has already figured this out. So you're just sitting there. It's just for your enjoyment. You know, it's 2 hours long. You know, there's going to be a resolution. So it's the first act. It's 45 minutes in. They think they've got this puzzle and they don't. And you know, okay, well, you're just watching. You're trusting that the movie is going to land. So then it gets a little bit more in the story, and then they go, oh, we found it, blah, 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 blah. And they get even more clues. And then they follow that puzzle, and that one doesn't work out. Okay, you don't walk out of the movie at that point. You got to see the end, right? You don't go, this is embarrassed. I'm embarrassed for them. I'm embarrassed for them, and walk out. No, you're like, oh my gosh, what is this movie doing? Because you know what a movie is intended to do, and you know that you're like, well, this is going to deliver on a grand scale. Like, how many more times can we do this, right? And you know, sometimes you get, you know, a movie gets too big for its britches, and you're like, what even was that? You know, at the end, it doesn't even whatever. But this is God we're talking about. Do you know what I mean? So when you're heavenly minded, everything is about sitting back and watching. And when you've got people, you know, operating in the gifts, working in the gifts, and they're trying to trust God, they want to, yeah. Can people take you on a ride? Yes, they can, but that is the earth. That's the earth. And you see a lot of people expecting, you know, if it doesn't pan out absolutely, positively, absolutely, then everybody go back to their lives, go back to what you were doing because you're earth focused. You're looking for something to get you out of your earth focus. You're looking for something supernatural, some evidence that you need to let go of the earth stuff. And that's not what it is. What it should be is heaven all the time. You're waiting for the signs, the earthly signs of heaven bubbling underneath the surface, ready to bust out. And you're waiting not to get back to your earthly life, but for the signal that earthly lifetime is up and that God is talking to you, or that he's just breaking through your earthly life, you know, guiding you into a direction. And so if somebody leads you on a faulty trail, you just go, well, that's annoying. Why would they do that? Like, some people really are just ridiculous. And then you go back to aiming, looking towards heaven. But when you're earthly focused, you're like, and somebody goes, the Lord is speaking to me. You're going, ugh, because you're tired already, because you were about to go have brunch. You were having mimosas, and this person is talking about God right now because you're on Earth. Like, I can. It's not like I'm saying anything against you can't go have mimosas, but I'm gonna go have mimosas. I can go have mimosas, but I'm heaven focused. I'm gonna put them. I can put those down at any moment. That's not the highlight of my life. The mimosas, the brunch with my friends, and they're my friends. I would do anything for them. Like, that's not what we're here to do. Like, we're here to get people saved, and yeah, we can enjoy everybody's company, and that's wonderful. But like, that is what you do in the in between time. This isn't the main part. So you feel all types of awkward and you feel bad when the thing doesn't pan out because uh, you want people to have solid evidence of an afterlife thing, of God being real. Okay, God is real though. He's super real. He's way, way, way real. And if he wants to drag this thing out and get eyes on this thing, which I've talked about before, and use other people to do it. Now, a lot of people say, well, God would never do that. God's not the author of confusion. It's the same thing with this. Why does the Bible bring conflict? And why do bad things happen to little babies? It's like, you can say that God's not the author of confusion, but you can also point to many times when Jesus walked the earth where folks was confused. So you got to look at the whole context of that chapter, which I probably should have looked up before I said that, but I totally forgot about it and it popped in my head just now. If I had my Bible like near me, I would look up that scripture. But that doesn't mean any and all confusion that happens in life is not of God. And also, people being skeptical is not confusion. You can't go around calling everything confusion because people disagree. Um, God is out to test things. And for some reason, I heard that the scripture about the miracle where Jesus fed the 5,000, and he used the 5 loaves and 2 fish, and it was one of the disciples said something like, uh, because Jesus, well, whatever, Jesus asked them, what do we have? And one of the disciples said something like, there's a little boy here with 5 loaves and 2 fish, but what consequence is that, or something like that, or he was just like, what's that gonna do, basically, and it just really just like hit me in a deep place, you know. He was just like, what are we gonna do with that? There's 5,000 people here. We got this little boy. He brought, he was prepared. He brought enough lunch for him and maybe one other person. They just couldn't see it, that what, and we sit back and we read that and we're all it's all done. He did it. It's done. Nobody had to have faith. Y'all don't have to have faith. Jesus is telling you, okay, have them sit down in groups of this and that. You didn't have to do that. You just sit and read it. It's done. And then you see these things, these people rising up and saying, listen, I think God is trying to show us, the time of his coming. I think God is trying to whatever. And you're just like, where is that in the word? It's so annoying. And the last thing I want to say really quick is I saw another report about this whole AI Bible thing. And also, I guess there's an AI Jesus that has been created in like Germany or something. They did like, or I don't know. I don't know if it's the same story or a different story, but there's an AI Jesus. And then there's a report that, they did the AI conducted a sermon in a German church or whatever. So, it's already begun. Has it even been a week since I posted that? 2 weeks? It's beginning. And it's not surprising to me. Like, how long can you really resist the temptation of asking this thing all the questions? You know what I'm saying? Instead of getting in your prayer closet, because that requires faith. And that's not knocking you. It's not like I'm miss prayer time, whatever. But it was only a matter of time, and now they're the video. I finally saw the video. The guy that proposed the AI Bible, and he's super enthused, and he just thinks it is just going to be such a high achievement of humankind, because he, like many of you, is earth based. And so everything is about, now we have a machine that we can know for sure is making something that is gathering all of the known earthly information, and yet is going to be beyond us in a way that we understand. And we're going to trust this thing to compile our information at a speed that no one, you know what I mean? Like, no one person is going to be able to do what this AI can do. Um, now we don't have to worry about this disjointed opinion over here, and this anecdotal experience over here, and this person. We're going to just put it all in the computer, and it's going to spit it back out at us, and put it all, we're going to tell it the parameters. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and I'm like, oh boy, this is what y'all want. This is what y'all want, and you're going to get it. It's what you want, and you're going to get it if you don't change your preferences. Because I'm telling you, God is going to keep moving in the way that He moves, which is using us, using flawed little old us, to get us to do things that seem sketchy in the moment, that seem like they don't really, because y'all don't understand the genius of God, and you don't understand how He uses regular people with no standing to get very, very poignant, powerful, potent information out to us, um, openly, without the devil, just pouncing all over it. Now, can the devil see clearly when God is speaking to us? Probably. Probably. And he probably is just, he's coming and just snatching it immediately and be like, that's crazy. Don't believe that. I don't know how that works. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he can see every last, thing of that. And instead of getting all up in arms and being like, no, he just convinces us to throw that seed away, or to, forget about it, or, he just snatches it up. Um, but, the way that God is able to openly, thoroughly get information to us, and then in hindsight, we look back and we see this record, because, we just can't, there's something about the future that we just cannot understand it. We cannot understand it. We cannot see it. But then once it's done and we can go back and revisit, we go, wow, look at what we can see, the footprints at that point. And that gives us faith. This is what He is using and wants to use. And this AI is going to satisfy your flesh. It's going to satisfy your flesh, but it's going to be spiritual. It's going to make you feel like you're doing something. And it's going to be like you're going to be able to fully comprehend it, and you're going to feel like, oh, now I understand. Now I'm enlightened. Guys, I'm begging you. This is, you like the broad road. You like the many roads. And heaven is a narrow road. And most people don't like that. You got to just realize, are you for the earth, which really represents unbelief, or are you for heaven, which is Because what is the scripture? It's like, eyes not seen, nor ear heard, nor is it entered into the minds of man what God has for, those that love him, and, or I don't know. Is it those that are called according to his purpose, or those that love him? I can't remember. I know the called according to his purpose is all things work for good. Anyways, what I'm saying is, you can't understand it. So you have to have faith. Like, you can't wrap your mind around him or what he has for the people that are going to be his. So you have to use faith. Um, it's like, I don't know. I was gonna say it's like a loan. It's like taking out a loan. It's like we took out a loan for our house. Do I feel like, it's like we own this house. We own this house, but do I have literally hundreds of thousands of dollars to, like, give to the bank for this house? No, I am paying on a basically a promise, an agreement based on the bank's resources. And we shake hands, I sign papers, and it's all based on the bank's resources. I suppose there's a bit of trust on both of our parts. So it's like, that's what you got to do with God. Like, God's like, would you like a no money down, like, loan on this thing? It's like, no, I'd rather pay for it, myself. It's like, you can't. Um, so yeah, I don't know. That fell apart at the end, but what I'm saying is basically, um, the things of God you cannot hold in your hand. You have to use faith, and you have to use it all the way. It just seems like a lot of people, I don't know if they just signed up and didn't really realize what it was all going to entail, and they felt like, well, I'm not going to go all the way there. I'm going to just go, I just, here. And to a certain degree, that is valid. And, maybe the only downside is that your rewards are going to be, you got your child size amount of whatever, faith or whatever, and you get your child size reward. If you're fine with that, that's great. But I think there's a certain point where you're just not on the scale at all. You're really just an unbeliever, because it's one thing to just, like, not be able to wrap your head around if God does miracles still or whatever. It's another thing to not even believe that we can receive from God. Like, do you not, like, do you agree that we're made in the image of God? Like, what do you think that even means? What do you think we are doing? Why are you so focused on what happens to people here? People dying. Why are you so focused on people dying when you're a Christian? Like, that should have been in your top 5 things to rejoice about after becoming a believer, is that, uh, you know, it's really not that big of a deal. When God says he's going to kill a man, he's basically saying, I'm calling him back to here. It shouldn't even sound brutal to you. It only sounds brutal to you because you're still on the earth. And for you, death is that person being separated from you forever. Because while you're still on the earth, you are still conceptualizing death as of a, your whole life is forever to you, and death is just forever. I mean, it's bizarre. How has your perspective not even changed since you accepted Christ on death? Like, you haven't read anything. I thought about something interesting today about Lazarus, that scripture where it says Lazarus come forth. And I think the whole idea was that that was a type and shadow of the church. And I think I've actually heard a pastor say, like, you know, he had to say Lazarus specifically, because if he just said come forth, the entire, the entire cemetery would have got up out of the grave. And I think it's kind of right. Um, he had to say, like, I haven't really seen another a situation where he, like, distinctively called someone's name specifically. Uh, I don't know. Anyway, I think we're just, for some reason, like, the supremacy of God is getting lost in the sauce for people. And the only thing I can attribute it to that is that you think that this is something to get you feeling good while you're on the earth, and to give you comfort and joy while you're on the earth, not an invitation to uh, leave this earth entirely and make heaven your focus. Um, and I don't know. It doesn't seem that hard to me. It's not, and it's not like I'm, you know, it's not about going off and being a monk or leaving your life or doing some crazy out there thing or becoming a missionary. It's not about any of that. It's just about, I mean, at the very least, you should be, you should have your childlike faith, because it says you can't even enter the kingdom of heaven without being like a child. So, um, and again, you have to be like a child because you cannot compute everything that God is. So you take the information that He's given you about Himself, and a lot of that takes a lot of time to chew on. It takes a long time to chew on, and then sometimes you get older and you find it's got more than one meaning. You know what I mean? Like, this is not, the Bible. Yeah, it's here and it's not glowing. There's not, it's not giving off music when you open it and all that stuff. But that thing is, I mean, you got to start there as far as changing your paradigm, because that book is just so, um, it's unbelievable. And it's that book paired with the Spirit of God. The Spirit of God is like,